Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul.
And this is Cheryl. We hope you had a wonderful holiday, and we would like to wish you a very happy new year. This week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, we want to share our reflections of our just completed Christmas cruise on MSC Meraviglia. Everyone who celebrates should sail a Christmas cruise. Put it on your bucket list. That's an easier one to check off than some exotic destination. If your situation allows you, do both. Paul and I have been on 3 Christmas cruises. At least try it once. We went on our first for all the wrong reasons. We had relocated to Florida from the Northeast, where we were used to hosting family Christmas festivities at our home. We were moping around because it was our first Christmas away from our family. Instead of a house buzzing with activities and lots of kids, we didn't even put up a Christmas tree that year.
Shortly before Christmas, we booked a 4-day cruise on a known booze cruise to the Bahamas. It was on the Norwegian Sky at a time when Sky did short open bar cruises from Miami. We picked a booze cruise to get away from an empty house and drown our sorrows. Well, let me be honest. Cheryl is a teetotaler, so maybe for me to drown my sorrows. Much to our surprise, the notorious NCL Sky wasn't overrun with college kids and boozy Generation Xers and boomers, but rather families and kids in Santa hats and matching pajamas. Instead of allowing us a few days of escape from missing our grandkids at Christmas, it magnified the absence with kids everywhere. The rest of the cruise, well, I told you it was a booze cruise. I can hardly remember it. Christmas of 2017, after 5 Christmases in Florida without family, we decided to fly to Philly Christmas Eve, and on Christmas morning knocked on my daughter's door in Newcastle, Delaware, surprising her, my son-in-law, and especially our grandkids. The look on their faces the moment we walked in was unforgettable. Immediately, I was obsessed with how we could replicate that joyful moment the following Christmas. Before we landed back in Fort Myers several days later, Cheryl and I had agreed on a cruise. I set out to put the cruise together. The itinerary was limited by the fact that we needed to leave from New York. It was a lot more affordable for us to fly up from Florida than to fly my 2 daughters, 2 grandchildren, and son-in-law to Florida and back. After researching thoroughly, and along the way getting the idea to write The Joy of Cruising, we booked Anthem of the Seas for Christmas 2018. Leaving out of New York resulted in an itinerary that was not very sexy. How ironic, we would be flying from Florida to New York to board a cruise whose first stop was Florida. After that, to the cruise line private island, and finally Nassau. The cruise was a surprise for the grandkids until they got in the limo to the pier and were handed their full-color mock gift certificates. The moment and the cruise were chronicled in the final chapter of The Joy of Cruising, in a chapter called Holidays. Early in 2023, we decided to do another family Christmas cruise. Again, my wife Cheryl and me, my daughters Keena and Shawnee, Keena's husband Lance, and their 2 children, my grandkids Kaylin, now 19, and Lakai, 14. The same financial considerations applied. That is, not flying the family to Florida led us to a New York departure, which meant a limited range of itineraries and ships. At least Cheryl and I could easily drive up, as we were now living in North Carolina. Our MSC Meraviglia 1223 to 1230 cruise had essentially the same itinerary as the 2018 Anthem cruise. Port Canaveral, the cruise line private island, and Nassau.
Just a brief word concerning Meraviglia's port stops. The first stop was Port Carnival. We did not leave the ship because it was Christmas Day, and we stayed in matching pajamas most of the day. For those considering this itinerary, I will point out that the last time we stopped here, we took the grandkids on a Kennedy Space Center excursion, and it was delightful. The second stop was Cay Marine Reserve, MSC's private island. Even though the ship was a half day late because of the weather delaying us from docking, it was a wonderful stop. Because of the delay, MSC did not set up the buffet and several of the food trucks did not open. But Paul and my son-in-law had no problem finding open bars. Paul posted the following on the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group and Instagram page. Into a lot of private islands, MSC's Cay Marine Reserve is the new number one for adults. Okay, come at me. No one has come back at him, but he has received some strong agreement. The third stop was Nassau. We all got off, but didn't go into town, just walked the blocks around the pier. My son-in-law was dying to have some conch, as he did the last time he was there. So we found a spot. Paul found a brand new gelato shop.
Let me jump in. They had great flavors, but then I saw that the cost was $9, double the price of the excellent gelato on Meriviglia. So I decided, I'll have some in an hour or so on the Meriviglia. By the way, I did spend $9 on the ship for my first ever gelato milkshake. Oh my goodness. One other thing about Nassau. I cringe when I read comments about not getting off the ship in Nassau. I get it. If you travel to the Bahamas, you almost always stop at Nassau, so it does get kind of old. The reason I cringe, however, is that I don't want new cruisers to get preconceived notions about Nassau and rob them of the opportunity to check it out for themselves. My daughters have checked off a bucket list experience at Nassau, jet skiing. As younger kids, my grandkids experienced what was considered then the world's best water park at Atlantis in Nassau. So new cruisers, give Nassau a chance. And even experienced cruisers, they have done a nice job with the new pier. Worth getting off the ship for that. If anyone from the Nassau travel community is listening, come on the show and tell us how wonderful your island can be for visitors. As listeners have heard me acknowledge when interviewing podcast guests who have sailed Meriviglia, the reviews on the experience are decidedly mixed. And yet I booked because it was the best option for my family of the ships leaving out of the New York area. It helped that we got a competitive fare with drink and Wi-Fi packages for all of us. Perhaps I can help dispel some myths, but I acknowledge that I can't deny someone else's complaints. Their perception of an experience is their reality. I am just another data point. I'll tell you my experience on the Christmas cruise, especially vis-a-vis the more prevalent complaints I hear and read about from others about Meriviglia. By the way, I characterize MSC as a mass market line seeking the same customers as Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and NCL. So when I compare my experience on Meriviglia to other lines, I am not talking about Disney, Princess, Holland America Line, Celebrity, or Virgin Voyages, all clearly a step above MSC. Let me be clear. When I say dispel some myths, this is not about defending MSC. I acknowledge concerns with various aspects of the MSC experience. Regarding one well-documented drawback of dealing with MSC, I conceded defeat right away before I even booked. For some odd reason, all the cruise lines that I have dealt with seem to be lacking somewhat in the IT area. In the case of the MSC website and online customer service, it can especially be a source of frustration. My recommendation for prospective MSC cruisers is to get a travel agent, even if that is something you do not normally do. Starting at the beginning of the cruise, the embarkation process was utterly normal. About 40 minutes, and that's despite, as always is the case with Christmas cruises, Meriviglia was sold out, which means there were over 5,000 aboard. I emphasize utterly normal because from time to time I've heard of MSC embarkations that sounded like disasters. Fortunately, not a problem on this cruise. So the winner for disastrous embarkation remains one of my favorite ships, Symphony of the Seas, where we inexplicably stood in line in 90-degree heat for hours and my knees buckled more than once. The rumor at the time was that the disembarking of the previous cruise was delayed due to a passenger fatality. Back to Meriviglia. After boarding, we were told that rooms would be ready at 1:30. So I went to what would become my go-to bar, the Edge Bar, in the atrium on Deck 6, to get my traditional first cruise drink, a Miami Vice, which is a pina colada mixed with a strawberry daiquiri. We got the muster drill taken care of fairly quickly. I had anticipated the worst, again from some comments that I read, but the process was quick and efficient, considering a ship at capacity. Now time to eat. A common complaint was that the Meriviglia buffet was an absolute bleep show. I disagree. Other than on embarkation day, the buffet experience was largely similar to other mass market ships. Not the best I've experienced, but definitely on par in terms of selection and quality. It's one of the largest I have seen. Just to underscore how perceptions can differ, I read a post on Facebook recently that criticized the buffet for being small. The buffet did stay more crowded than other lines though. That is attributable to what I think is by far MSC's biggest drawback: its lack of complimentary food options. There are no other cruise lines I am aware of with a similar situation. That is, the only place to eat is the buffet and the main dining room. That is so 2010. I am sure MSC will address this eventually because they have to hear it from the customer feedback forums. I know they heard it from me. I think they will remedy this situation on Meriviglia sooner rather than later during a dry dock. Otherwise, for many cruisers who have experienced cruise lines like Carnival with its Guy's Burgers, NCL with its 24-hour eateries, will consider Meriviglia a one and done.
While we're on the subject, the other prevalent criticism about MSC is the food. For us, breakfast and lunch were mostly in the buffet, and as mentioned, the buffet was typical in terms of quality. We did eat breakfast in the MDR, as is our tradition on disembarkation morning. It was outstanding, and I kind of wish we had taken advantage of breakfast service earlier. For dinner, we ate a mix of specialty restaurants, and the MDR, and they too were about the same as Carnival, Royal, and NCL. I will say that we have read several reviews about disorganization and slowness in the MDR. I guess that Meriviglia must have added staff because that was not our experience on the sold-out cruise.
Admittedly, we didn't eat in the main dining room much, because pizza. I'll explain what I mean by that shortly. But there were some standouts. In the main dining room, I had a beef tenderloin entree that was as good as any I had ever eaten in a Carnival, Royal, and NCL MDR. It could have been served in a specialty restaurant. By the way, MSC specialty restaurants are fine as well. We ate first in teppanyaki, which is always fun on any line. However, one way MSC stands out is the dinner starts with a nice-sized serving of sushi and sashimi. Didn't have anything like that on other cruises. And my Generation X daughter and son-in-law turned me on to something called a sake bomb. A sake shot dropped into a glass of Kirin Japanese beer. Our other specialty meals are at Meriviglia's seafood restaurant, Ocean Cay, and also at its well-regarded steakhouse, Butcher's Cut. Both were fine. However, one very significant potential pain point for passengers of the previously mentioned cruise lines, Royal, Carnival, and NCL, who try MSC for the first time, are the specialty dining packages. On other lines, a dining package enables you to order almost anything on the menu. Of course, there are exceptions like seafood towers or humongous 36-ounce tomahawk steaks. On MSC, however, purchases of the dining package are limited to a selected, relatively small section of the restaurant's menu. Out of these small sections, I was satisfied with my choices. I had a cod dish at Ocean Cay and an 8-ounce filet mignon at Butcher's Cut. My daughter had a 14-ounce New York strip steak. This pre-selected menu might not be such a big deal if MSC was upfront about this when you purchased the package pre-cruise, especially given its reasonable pricing. We paid $71 each for a 3-restaurant package, less than half of what I have paid on other lines. I do understand that it has since increased somewhat in price. The pain point is that most passengers learn about the limited menu included in the package long after they book and often at the time of receiving the menu at the restaurant. Talk about a rude awakening. I recall watching a YouTube video where the vloggers largely raved about Meriviglia, but then addressed the issue of MSC not being upfront about the dining package limitation. It seemed clear to me that the couple felt duped, were angry, and all the goodwill MSC had garnered from the positive review that the couple had otherwise given was frittered away. So while I think the marketing of the dining packages is misleading, the pricing and selections within that limited menu are reasonable. I think an easy remedy for MSC is to just do a better job of providing full disclosure.
There was a couple of other four-plate eateries. Ola Tacos offered an a la carte Mexican menu, including an all-you-can-eat choice for $18. My grandkids weren't feeling seafood, so they chose to use one of their 3-night dinner package there. We tried to add a late-night reservation to join them, but it was sold out. Their parents did buy takeout and ate it outside the restaurant. My daughter Kina said Ola Taco was delicious. Nice change up from the other fancier specialty dinners. Also, a great option if you didn't get a specialty package for dinner. Food was really good, lots of variety, and flavor was on point. Hard to get reservations, but so worth grabbing the takeout and eating it out in the main hall while we people watched. My grandson said was really good change up with a lot of different options. Food was great. The service was slow, but the food ended up making up for it.
I alluded to the cracked pizza earlier. I sometimes resort to grand exclamations to emphasize a point, so I will do one right now. For me, the pizza on Meriviglia is the best at sea. Hyperbole? I'd love for you to come back at me with your thoughts on the Joy Cruising Podcast Facebook group or Instagram page. I've heard Princess has the best pizza, but I won't get to check that out for another year when I board the Sun Princess in the Greek islands. Certainly versus Carnival, Royal, and NCL, all of which I have tried several times, Meriviglia is the best. That is a big reason we didn't go to the MDR. Besides pizza at lunch, we tended to have pizza in the evening and then again late at night, where judging by the crowd, pizza intake syncs perfectly with the body clocks of teens. I thought the pizza was worth getting a few quotes from my family. I actually planned to interview them on the cruise for the podcast. Santa had put under the Charlie Brown tree in my daughter and son-in-law's cabin a nice portable microphone set. How did they know? That's exactly what I wanted. But we were just too busy on the cruise for me to set it up to do this podcast.
I didn't eat pizza every day, but I enjoyed the white pizza every time I ate it. My daughter Kina said, I literally ate pizza every single day and loved every bite. And I loved topping it with Parmesan cheese and red pepper flakes. It was so fresh, and I loved the different varieties. It was one of my favorite things to eat on the ship. I also enjoyed the variety of artesian breads. I haven't eaten that much bread in a long time. It was always fresh and soft and plentiful. Our daughter Shawnee said, I enjoyed the pizza. I ate it every other day, and I topped it with Parmesan cheese. I loved how fresh and thin it was because it was always available. My 19-year-old grandson said, pizza was very fresh and was available late night as well as whenever I was hungry. There were also many different options. My 14-year-old granddaughter, Cay, said, I loved the pizza. It was always super flavorful and a perfect amount of cheese. I also topped mine with Parmesan cheese and pepper flakes. And for the final word on the pizza, our son-in-law Lance said, easily the highlight of the buffet, always fresh and tasty, available for lunch, dinner, and late night snack. To be honest, I would have eaten it for breakfast as well.
Well, almost the final word. Food is so subjective. While I have said I respect others' opinions and perception is reality, I must admit I do roll my eyes at any negative comments about Meriviglia pizza. So there you have it. Food on Meriviglia is about on par with competitors, with its pizza being a standout. However, a huge shortcoming that I believe Meriviglia has to address is the complete absence of complimentary food options beyond the buffet and poolside food. This has multiple effects on other aspects of the cruise experience. It renders the buffet overly crowded most of the time. The other is that it will disadvantage MSC when passengers assess the relative value of Meriviglia to some NCL ships where you have access to complimentary food 24 hours a day, or the Carnival, where the complimentary Guy's Burgers is a worldwide brand in and of itself, or the famous Royal Caribbean complimentary Kummelweck roast beef sandwich from Park Cafe or Cafe 270. I suspect this is the biggest issue of the once and done passengers. It certainly is mine.
As mentioned, we optioned for drink packages and internet packages. We found the drink packages, it was the Easy Plus package, which was the middle tier choice. We're on par or better than competitors. My grandkids had the minor equivalent, which enabled them to order anything we could, minus the alcohol. Besides being much cheaper, MSC's had a couple of other advantages. They included premium waters and premium coffees, no water cans or square cardboard containers. Espressos, lattes, and cappuccinos were available at virtually every bar. However, I did miss that there was no coffee shop with Danish and assorted specialty teas.
Shawnee told me her drinks range from dirty martinis, red wine, still and sparkling water, Fanta, and coffee with Baileys to start and end her day. I started every morning by picking up a latte on the way to the buffet. After a couple of days, that became a latte with a shot of Baileys. I blamed Shawnee. Meriviglia did have a bar in the buffet, but it did not serve coffee nor make cocktails. It only had beer, wine, water, and soda.
Keena said, I love having the drink package. I felt like it covered lots of drinks. It was fun to explore new stuff and always have a fallback of my faves. The pina coladas were inconsistent from bar to bar, but like with any bar, you find your favorite bartenders and such. Overall, definitely felt great swiping my card and getting what I needed. About the bar service in general, the servers were very friendly and the drinks were definitely not watered down. One very common complaint in the past Meriviglia reviews was that the bars were always overrun and that it could take 20 minutes to get a drink. Well, as I suggested earlier, perhaps Meriviglia added staff because that wasn't our experience.
For those who are wondering, yes, your drink package applies to the bars on Ocean Cay, even if you order 2 drinks at once. Why would you do that? Well, my son-in-law turned me on to a drink on Ocean Cay called a Mexican Bulldog, a pina colada mixed with a Corona. The internet was fine once we were able to get connected. It seemed about on par with other lines in terms of quality. Kina had to do a little bit with her job. She said internet was spotty for me, but it got the job done. I was able to communicate with work when I needed to, share pictures, and communicate with the family when I needed. One weird restriction that is unique to Meriviglia is that your internet account is locked to one device, as opposed to being able to log off your phone and log on to your iPad. Perhaps that is not a big deal to many. Some cruises even think you should totally disconnect. But for me, as a writer, podcaster, and overall information junkie, I will bring phone, iPad, and laptop on a cruise. I guess MSC thinks that this will generate more sales of their 2-device and 3-device packages. I think it is a money grab that alienates your customers. Come on, MSC. You're on par with your competitors in so many ways. This isn't one of them. This 1-device policy brought me into contact with the MSC customer service desk, whose reputation preceded them. Not good, has been the consensus. By the way, I wasn't there to complain about the policy. I knew what I was getting and declined the opportunity to upgrade to multiple devices. However, we were unable to connect on our phones, and the line for Wi-Fi assistance was long on embarkation day. Later, embarkation night, I tried to connect via my iPad, and it worked. However, that's not exactly what I wanted, as I planned to use my phone as my single device. Well, guess what? My phone connected as well. Sounds good, right? Nope. Our allotment was 2 devices per cabin, and I suspect that is why Cheryl was unable to connect. So in the morning, we went to the internet desk. I explained that Cheryl needed to communicate with my grandkids, and I do not need to have 2 devices activated if it meant Cheryl could not connect. He gave me some gobbledygook about satellites and how it was impossible to transfer from one device to another. I said, okay, fine, just get Cheryl connected. And he maintained that I would have to buy another plan for Cheryl, which I didn't agree with because due to their system, it connected my 2 devices by accident. I went over to the customer service desk and immediately found out why Meriviglia customer service is almost universally slammed by previous passengers. The attendants were absolutely useless, simply repeating a clearly memorized line that there is nothing I could do except buy another plan for Cheryl's phone. It was at this point I went into what I call my crazy customer act. But it was not an act. When I know that I am right about something, watch out. I demanded to speak to a supervisor. So someone in the same blue attire came out and again seemed unable to make a decision. They just recited similar words to the first person I spoke to. I asked the supervisor to let me speak to her boss. This time, an officer in a white uniform came out. Once it was clear that she could not or would not make a decision, I demanded to speak to her boss. She then got on the phone for an extended period. When she got off, she told me to go back to the internet desk at a certain time, a couple hours later, and ask for Anuka. I guess that's the internet manager. I hope I'm saying it right. Within minutes, Anuka fixed the issue, deleted the internet from my iPad, and added it to Cheryl's iPhone. Problem solved. But I don't think there should have been so many fraught interactions with customer service. So they lived up to or down to expectations. To be fair, customer service redeemed themselves Somewhat. I received a call that evening from customer service asking if I was satisfied. I did not expect that. Rarely have I had a customer service organization follow up with me, and I applaud them for that.
As far as the ship itself, this is the one area where there is a strong consensus in virtually every review I read or watched, that the ship is absolutely beautiful. There are spaces on the ship that rival not just Carnival, Royal, and NCL's best, but ships in the next highest tier. MCS's Swarovski crystal staircases spanning the 5th through the 7th levels of the atrium are stunning and unrivaled by competitors in its most attractive aspect of the ship.
I hear each step costs $10,000. I don't know if that is true. I heard it on a vlog. I don't want to be passing along inaccurate information, and I invite anyone from MSC to come on the show and set me straight. The ship has 19 decks, and I think we did a lot up to deck 17 or maybe 18. Above that is a twilight zone known as the MSC Yacht Club. MSC's entrant into the trendy luxury ship within a ship concept. Sorry, I can't share any personal observations for those of you planning a stay in the yacht club. And yes, they are always cleaning, seemingly obsessively so. I recall on Christmas Day, all of these families, us included, milling around in their pajamas and Santa hats, trying to take photos in that gorgeous atrium and usually on those crystal staircases. And there was a cleaning person with a backpack vacuum cleaner weaving his way through the families as if it were a normal day. He must have been trying to impress a supervisor. Don't come at me, because I'm kind of joking. By the way, let me use that nameless, and after several days, faceless crew member as a representation of the entire MSC staff that we interacted with. They were outstanding, just as they are on MSC's competitors. How some people find otherwise is a surprise to me, and there are any number of individuals we could single out. Far and away the best performer was a woman who played electric guitar along with tracks from a Mac computer. She was amazing. From Christmas songs to reggae, Donna Summer, Sade, and so on. At first, I thought, why isn't she headlining with a live band backing her? Who knows, maybe she decided the solo route is a better way of making money and she's being entrepreneurial. Anyway, I would love to have her on the show, and she seemed delighted that I asked. Meriviglia was active all hours of the day. I tend to chill on a cruise, and I guess with my family there was very little downtime. The closest I came to just sitting in one spot for a long time was watching football on the big screen around the pool during the days, and watching at night from the gorgeous Sky Lounge, which was just a great venue with several fine solo jazz performers, complimentary snacks, hors d'oeuvres, and desserts. A lot of activities took place in the Galleria, which was a 2-story promenade highlighted by a spectacular LED dome. On the second level of the promenade was a bridge where often the entertainment staff and DJ would lead rousing parties, and other times a soloist playing the guitar or steel drums would perform. Lining the Galleria on either side of the first level were a variety of shops, a crepes and gelato concession, a bar and performance area, and the Jean-Philippe Chocolatier, which makes and sells premium chocolates, and the decor is highlighted by some large and intricate chocolate sculptures. At the end of the Galleria is the entrance to the Broadway Theater, where most shows are held. The Broadway Theater is dazzling in red and chrome, but unlike most cruise ship theaters, forbids drinks in the theater.
The second level of the Galleria was lined with specialty restaurants, including Kato Sushi Bar. Paul wanted to take our younger daughter, Shornay, who kind of got him into sushi, but they couldn't get reservations. There were also a couple of bars, including the Brass Anchor Pub, which was always busy and served bar food for purchase. I was able to watch football with Paul on the several televisions there. My daughter and son-in-law ate there. They said the food service wasn't great. Maybe it was because we ordered from the bar. There was some confusion about who could or would take our orders from there. It was hard to get consistent service while eating at the bar. I'd suggest that if you eat there, do so from a table. We had buffalo wings and fish and chips. The buffalo wings didn't have enough sauce, but had a decent taste to them. But they weren't hot enough. The fish and chips were piping hot, but not plentiful in terms of meat. The breading was good, though. Keena thought the price was very reasonable. Shornay said, I went to the pub and planned to get fish and chips and wings. Both were sold out. It was 9:30 the night before debarkation. I ended up getting some Scotch eggs and fries for $7.95 and fried pickles, which I loved, for $3.95. I didn't care for the Scotch eggs because it was not something I was accustomed to. Their prices were very good. I had a Corona to top it off. LOL. Changing the subject, there were a lot of activities for kids, teens, and adventurous adults. Since Paul and I didn't fall into any of those categories, we didn't explore much. And frankly, the grandkids didn't either, probably because they were more into their friends they met. We rarely saw them, but when we did, they were usually with friends. Outside, there was a full water park with water slides, and there was a ropes course where we could walk high above the ship. Although he dreaded it approaching the cruise, Paul had vowed to do it if our granddaughter wanted to do it. On embarkation day, she said she was scared, and Paul exhaled. There were also a lot of activities for kids, teens, and mildly adventurous adults inside the Meriviglia. Keena and Lance's family made great use of the fitness center. Both grandkids are star athletes, and Lance is a high school football coach, former NFLer, and personal trainer, so you know the kids got great workouts. Keena is also an athlete, and she and Paul did one of her Peloton workouts. Paul did a social media post that Keena was getting back at him and tried to kill him in the workout for joking that he was spending our daughter's inheritance on booking cruises. Keena said about the gym, loved the gym. It was positioned perfectly on the ship to see the big screen outside. Lots of equipment. I even used the multi-purpose room to torture Dad.
Another area for indoor fun on Deck 16, Meriviglia calls the amusement park, which is comprised of a full-size 2-lane bowling alley, a 4D cinema, a couple of F1 simulators and a flight simulator, and a full-size arcade. This is an area in which we blew it, and we can't blame MSC. Prior to the cruise, we purchased 3 fun passes for $80 each, which provided $140 each worth of activities. We decided too late in the cruise to utilize the fun passes, so when we went to use them, the F1 simulators and the bowling alley were booked up for the remainder of the cruise. We did have some fun things, but we did not get much value from the fun passes and probably could have gotten away with buying just one. So make sure if you purchase fun passes, go there early in the cruise to make reservations. And be forewarned about the flight simulator. It is not just an enclosed space dependent on virtual reality where you are not really moving. It swings repeatedly 360 degrees, and the scenario on the screen is not from the perspective of flight, as is suggested by the name Flight Simulator, but rather from the perspective of a wild, amazing roller coaster ride. I hate roller coasters, and when it was over, I had to get Cheryl to assure me that I could not be heard outside the simulator. Since she assured me I wasn't heard, I'll leave it right there. Finally, in terms of activities, we made great use of 2 areas for adult fun. the spa, and the casino. All the adults got massages. They were excellent and very reasonably priced. Cheryl and I got 80-minute massages for the price you would pay for 50 minutes on other lines. The other adult play area was the casino. It was a nice size. Weirdly, there is another small bank of slot machines not really close to the casino. It looked like what you might see in the airport in Vegas. I heard at least one person think it was the main casino. They said, "Wow, the casino is small." Keena enjoyed craps, Lance and Shawnee blackjack, and as on all cruises, Cheryl and I took a certain amount of money to lose in the slots, but have fun while losing it. As a former finance professor, I smile when I hear questions about loose slots on Facebook cruise groups. There is no such thing. But for those who care about such things, for Cheryl and me, on our last night on Meriviglia, the slots were quite loose. Let me close with some rapid-fire thoughts about MSC Meraviglia. We like letter grades, so I will give MSC Meraviglia a letter grade of B. It will never score higher if they don't relieve the pressure of the buffet with additional complimentary food options. MSC, your customer experience and customer service function needs work. MSC Ocean Cay is an A. However, we did not get to experience its food service. MSC, do better at being upfront about the limited specialty dining menus. Just a thought, I will never pay for cruise line produced shows. The regular included shows are in the Broadway Theater, and they were fine. However, there are two $18 shows in the Carousel Theater that back during the pandemic replaced MSC's partnership that it had with Cirque du Soleil. I have paid often for Cirque du Soleil shows, including $250 a person in Vegas, and I wouldn't hesitate to pay on a cruise ship if it were available. These shows are not Cirque du Soleil. They had one comedian. He was good, and we saw him twice. His name was Ken Boyd. He only did one adult only show, and it was sold out. So it seems there is an easy fix there, MSC. Add more adult shows. Curiosity question. Why doesn't this Italian cruise line have an Italian restaurant? I think MSC Meraviglia is ideal for first-time and relatively new cruises. Finally, Christmas 2023 on MSC Meraviglia with my family was wonderful. We hope you found this helpful and would love to interact with you about it on the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or IG. All the best to you for 2024, and we'll see you on the ocean.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the three books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.